Dear chosen ones, welcome. You did not arrive here by accident. You were led by spirit, by alignment, by the divine hand that's been gently guiding your path long before you even realized it. Life for you has never been ordinary. It has been a sacred journey of awakening, refinement and rebirth. And while many around you may have seemed to reach their milestones early, your soul was undergoing something deeper, preparation for purpose. Unlike others who may peak quickly, you were being rooted slowly for something far greater. Life has taught you through fire, through silence, through moments that almost made you give up. But you didn't. And now at 40, everything begins to make sense. This is not the age of decline, it's the age of divine clarity. It's where wisdom meets timing and power meets peace. The questions that once haunted you are being answered. The doors that were once closed are now creaking open. And the strength you didn't even know you were building, it's finally ready to be used. If you've ever felt out of place, misunderstood or delayed, take heart. You weren't behind. You were just being prepared. Every setback, every rejection, every moment you felt hidden, it was part of the molding. The world may not have seen your value yet, but heaven always did. And now you're ready to step into what was already written. The confusion is lifting, the pieces are coming together, and your divine mission is beginning to unfold in full color. Before we dive into the 8 powerful reasons why life truly begins at 40 for God's chosen ones, I want to pause and say thank you to everyone who has supported this space through the Super Thanks feature. Your generosity does not go unnoticed. It helps sustain and expand this community, and I am deeply, deeply grateful. Whether your support has been financial, spiritual, or simply your continued presence here, please know that it is appreciated more than words can express. And if you're here just watching, listening, receiving, you are just as welcome. This space is for all who are seeking alignment, and I am honored to walk this journey with you. If this message already resonates with your spirit, I invite you to type 999 in the comments right now, not as a trend, but as a declaration, a confirmation that you are aligned, present, and stepping into a new chapter that will not be defined by fear, comparison, or delay, but by divine purpose. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing and becoming part of this growing community of chosen ones. We are not many, but we are mighty, and we are rising together. So now, take a deep breath, center yourself, because what you're about to hear may not just affirm you, it may activate you. These next few moments could mark the turning point you've been waiting for. Let's explore the 8 sacred, undeniable reasons why, for God's chosen ones, your real life doesn't begin in your 20s or 30s. It begins at 40. And this time, you're ready. God's chosen ones, 8 reasons why your life begins at 40. Keep this in mind. Number 1. You have mastered the art of letting go, and that's what made you unstoppable. Chosen one, have you ever wondered why everything you once clung to so tightly had to be stripped away? Why certain people, opportunities, and even pieces of your identity had to fall apart right when you thought you needed them most? The truth is, this wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You were never meant to carry all of that into the next dimension of your calling, and by the time you reach 40, something deep and unshakable begins to awaken within you. This is not just the turning of a new chapter. It is the divine recalibration of your entire soul. You are no longer the person who begs for things to stay. You have become someone who understands that release is not weakness, it is holy wisdom. Why do so many spend their early years begging to be accepted, to be understood, to hold on to titles, friendships, and identities that were never aligned with their higher self? Because the world trains us to grasp, to attach, and to fear loss. But you, chosen one, were never meant to follow that script. You were born to transcend it. And that's exactly what your 40s are revealing. What you once feared losing, you now see as chains that needed to be broken. The art of letting go didn't come to you easily, did it? You learned it in the trenches, through betrayal, through disappointment, through seasons where you gave your all and were met with silence, rejection, or confusion. But now you look back and realize it was those very moments that trained your spirit to rise. Letting go of toxic people, outdated belief systems, and societal expectations wasn't a one-time act. It was a lifelong practice that has finally matured into a supernatural strength. Do you feel it now? That peace that rises when you don't chase, don't cling, and don't beg anymore. That's not apathy, that's divine clarity. As it says in Ecclesiastes 3:6, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. This verse was not meant to frighten you, it was written for you, chosen one. You now understand timing like never before. You no longer panic when a door closes. You no longer crumble when someone exits your life. Because now you know, if God allowed it to leave, it was making space for something greater. Let's be real. There was a time when letting go felt like dying. Remember when you had to walk away from the relationship that once defined your self-worth, or that job that gave you a false sense of security but no real peace. Think about how many nights you cried thinking you were losing everything, and yet what felt like destruction was actually a divine reconstruction. Oprah Winfrey once said, "You can have it all, just not all at once." She too had to let go of roles, expectations, and people who couldn't handle her light. And look what happened. In surrender, her purpose expanded. Another example is Nelson Mandela. After spending 27 years in prison, he had every reason to be bitter, to hold on to rage, but instead, he let go. He forgave, he released the pain, and in doing so transformed into one of the most powerful leaders of our time. Chosen one, your freedom is tied not to what you can hold, but to what you can release. What would happen if you finally stopped gripping what God is trying to remove? The letting go you've mastered by 40 isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. You're not just releasing people, you're releasing ego. You're not just moving on from jobs or roles, you're moving into divine identity. This is the age when what once worked stops working, and that's how you know you're evolving. What happens when the applause no longer moves you, when validation loses its grip on your heart? That's when God knows He can finally trust you with the weight of your destiny. Philippians 3:13-14 reminds us, "But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal." This isn't just about ambition, it's about sacred focus. You're not just pressing on for yourself, you're carrying the spiritual legacy of generations before you. Everything you've released has made space for divine abundance to enter. Tyler Perry, another chosen one in disguise for many years, was once homeless. He had to let go of comfort, expectations, and countless failed shows before he stepped into his now legendary role as a creator and mogul. What if his breaking point had been where he stopped? What if he didn't learn how to let go of what didn't work? And what if, just like him, your real power is about to emerge because you've finally surrendered what never served you? And think about Maya Angelou, who endured racism, trauma, and silence before her voice changed the world. Her ability to let go of shame and speak her truth was the very thing that anointed her with timeless wisdom. You too have a voice rising. What parts of your story are you finally ready to release so that your message can breathe? Psalm 55:22 tells us, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you." This is your blueprint now. You don't carry unnecessary weight into your future. You cast it, you surrender it, you rise lighter and more focused than ever. Even Steve Jobs once said, after being fired from his own company, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because it forced him to release pride, reinvent himself, and return with clarity." Can you see how letting go isn't an ending? It's a divine pivot. Chosen one, as you walk deeper into your 40s, your entire posture shifts. You don't fight for seats at tables you've outgrown. You don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't hold on to roles, friendships, or patterns that leak your power. You flow in peace now, because peace is what happens when your spirit is no longer chained to old versions of you. Isaiah 43:18-19 echoes this promise. "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Yes, chosen one, do you not perceive it? The new thing is already here. You just had to make room for it." So what is still clinging to your spirit that God is asking you to release? What old identity are you defending that no longer fits your divine assignment? What would your life look like if you trusted that every loss was heaven's protection? You're not in a breakdown, you're in a becoming. And now that you've mastered the art of letting go, everything that is truly meant for you is free to find you without resistance, without fear, without delay. Because now, at 40, you are no longer who you were. You are who you were born to be. Number 2, the illusion of time no longer controls you, and that's how you reclaimed your peace. Chosen one, how long did you live under the tyranny of a ticking clock? How many times did you feel behind, late, or not where you should be? For much of your life, the world handed you invisible deadlines. Graduate by this age, succeed by that age, marry by then, own a home by now. And if you didn't meet those checkpoints, you were made to feel like a failure, as if your worth could be measured by how well you followed a schedule someone else designed. But what if I told you that none of that urgency was ever truly yours? What if I told you that the moment you turned 40, heaven whispered, now they're ready to see beyond the clock? You see, chosen one, the illusion of time is one of the greatest tricks ever played on humanity. It makes people race through life, anxious and exhausted, chasing milestones that may not even align with their purpose. But you've woken up. Something in you has shifted. You are no longer dominated by deadlines. You no longer measure your life by calendars or compare your pace to others. You've stepped into divine timing, God's timing, and in doing so, you've stepped into rest. What changed? How did you go from feeling anxious about being too late to being absolutely certain that you are right on time? It wasn't a sudden epiphany. It was years of spiritual training. It was watching dreams fall apart, only to see better ones rise from the ashes. It was being excluded, delayed and misunderstood, only to realize those detours were divine redirections. By the time you reached this chapter in your life, you stopped asking, why is it taking so long? And started asking, what is God preparing me for? As Psalm 31:15 declares, my times are in your hands. This verse is not a poetic metaphor, it's a prophetic truth for you. Your times, your seasons, your growth, it's all unfolding in the hands of the Creator. You are not behind, you are being built. Look at Vera Wang. She didn't design her first wedding dress until she was 40. Before that, she was a figure skater and fashion editor. To the outside world, it looked like she had missed her window to become a designer. But heaven doesn't work on man-made timelines. Vera's success was delayed so that it could be divine. Can you imagine how much unnecessary pressure she would have carried if she believed her life had to peak in her 20s? What about Morgan Freeman? He became a household name in his 50s. Decades before that, he took small roles, faced rejection, and remained unknown. But his voice, his presence, timeless. That's the kind of anointing you carry, chosen one. You weren't made for early blooming. You were made for endurance, for depth, for glory that builds slowly, not fame that fades quickly. Have you considered that the reason things took longer for you is because your foundation needed to be stronger? Ecclesiastes 3:11 reminds us, He has made everything beautiful in its time. Not your neighbor's time, not social media's timeline, not your family's expectations, but in its time, your time, chosen time. That means there is beauty reserved for the version of you that could only emerge now at 40, the version that's no longer frantically chasing approval, the version that knows how to wait well. So let me ask you, how much of your life has been shaped by imaginary clocks? How many decisions did you rush because you feared being too late? How many moments did you miss because your eyes were locked on someone else's timeline? And now, how does it feel to finally look around, breathe deep, and know you're exactly where you're meant to be? There is peace in that knowing, deep peace. The kind that allows you to be fully present, not half living in fear of the future or regret of the past. You begin to walk slower, speak with more clarity, and move with intentionality. And this is what separates you from the crowd now. While others are still racing, you are rooted. While they panic, you pray, because you understand that favor delayed is not favor denied, it's often favor refined. Think about J.K. Rowling. She was 32, divorced, a single mother, and struggling with depression when she wrote the first Harry Potter book. It wasn't published until she was 36. That book changed the world, but the world told her she was late. God, however, said she was right on time. And you, what world-shifting idea, calling or breakthrough is still gestating in your spirit, just waiting for the perfect time to be born? As Romans 8:25 says, "But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently." That's what your spirit now understands. You've stopped demanding that life deliver on your deadlines. You've learned to wait with joy, with expectation, with wisdom, because now you know delay is a holy mechanism, not a curse. You're not being stalled, you're being staged. Consider Colonel Sanders. He started KFC at 65 years old after years of failure, dead-end jobs and disappointment. Imagine if he had given up at 39, convinced his time had passed. But chosen ones like him and like you are not defined by age. They are defined by assignment. And assignment doesn't expire, it activates. And remember Sarah from the Bible? She was 90 when she gave birth to Isaac. 90. The world would have written her off long before. But divine timing doesn't obey biology, it obeys prophecy. Sarah's womb wasn't late. It was sacredly scheduled. Can you see now how your journey has never been off track? It's been anointed to bloom at a time that confounds the expectations of others. Proverbs 16:9 teaches us, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." That's what's happening to you now. At 40, your plans have matured, but more importantly, your surrender has deepened. You still dream, but you no longer panic. You no longer force outcomes. You flow. You listen. You trust. So, chosen one, breathe. You're not behind, you're being aligned. Every year that felt like a delay was actually a deposit. Every no that felt like rejection was really protection. Every missed deadline was God rerouting you into a more divine design. And now that you no longer see time as a weapon against you, but as a servant of your destiny, you've finally stepped into peace. Ask yourself, what would it look like to live without rushing? What if you no longer saw age as a threat, but as proof of refinement? What if your late bloom is the very thing that makes your fruit undeniable? You're not running out of time, you're running into your purpose, and now the clock is no longer your enemy, it's your evidence. Number 3, you have discovered your true purpose, and nothing can pull you away from it now. Chosen one, do you remember those years where you couldn't quite explain the emptiness inside you? You were moving, achieving, checking off life's boxes, yet something felt off. You had the job, maybe the house, the titles, but not the inner fulfillment. Deep down, there was a voice asking, is this really all there is? And no matter how far you ran or how much you accomplished, the question echoed louder. But something divine begins to happen when you reach 40. What once felt like scattered fragments, those jobs that didn't work out, the relationships that ended, the places you wandered into and out of, suddenly begin to connect. Like puzzle pieces snapping into place. Your past doesn't look like failure anymore. It looks like training. Your confusion starts making sense, because now your purpose is no longer a mystery, it's a mission. Have you ever wondered why you had to endure so much discomfort in your earlier years? Why nothing ever fully fit? Why doors that looked promising slammed shut just when you thought they would open? The truth is, God wasn't denying you, He was refining you. He was preparing your heart, sharpening your discernment, and maturing your character. Because your purpose isn't small, it was never meant to be casual. And that means your preparation had to be sacred. Romans 8:28 gives us this timeless assurance. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Chosen one, this is you. Even when you couldn't see it, God was arranging everything for your divine calling. Even the delays and detours were His fingerprints guiding you toward alignment. By the time you enter your 40s, you're no longer searching for random success. You're pursuing divine impact. That is a monumental shift. Your purpose is no longer about how many people applaud you. It's about how many souls are transformed through your obedience. You begin to realize that fulfillment isn't found in applause, it's found in assignment. Take Julia Child, for example. She didn't find her true purpose cooking until her late 30s. She published her first cookbook at age 49 and didn't become a household name until well into her 50s. For decades before that, She wandered through careers that didn't satisfy, but the whole time God was seasoning her spirit for something timeless. Sound familiar? And what about Moses? He was 40 when he left Egypt, and it took another 40 years in the wilderness before he stepped fully into his purpose to lead the Israelites. That's not wasted time, that's divine development. You, chosen one, are walking the same prophetic rhythm. The wilderness didn't delay you, it revealed you. Can you feel it now? That inner fire, that pull towards something greater than success, something eternal. Proverbs 19:21 affirms, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." You had plans, you tried paths, but the call on your life couldn't be overridden, not by failure, not by rejection, not even by your own confusion. God's purpose for you was never fragile, it was simply waiting for the right version of you to rise. And now you're here. At 40, you don't just see your gifts, you honor them. You've stopped comparing your talents to others and started trusting that your uniqueness is the proof of your purpose. You realize now that your voice, your experiences, your wisdom, they were never random. They were pieces of the divine assignment God placed in you before you were born. Ephesians 2:10 declares, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Did you catch that? Prepared in advance. That means your purpose isn't something you create, it's something you uncover. And at 40, the fog lifts. You stop chasing purpose and start stepping into it. Oprah Winfrey has often said that every experience in her life, whether painful or powerful, was part of her divine training. From her abusive childhood to her early career failures, none of it stopped her. All of it shaped her. And it wasn't until she embraced her platform as a tool for healing and elevation that her purpose exploded. What if the same is true for you? What if everything you've gone through wasn't just for survival, but for spiritual strategy? And look at C.S. Lewis. Though he began publishing early, his most influential work, The Chronicles of Narnia, and his powerful theological writings came later in life, once he had matured through personal loss, conversion, and grief. His early wandering wasn't wasted, it was woven. Chosen one, what if your wandering was actually the slow weaving of your calling? Isaiah 30:21 says, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That voice, that guidance, you feel it more clearly now, don't you? It's not as loud as the world's pressure, but it's more powerful. That's how you know it's divine. It's not screaming, it's anchoring. So let me ask you, what patterns are you finally ready to break so you can walk fully in your purpose? What distractions are you willing to release so your divine clarity can shine? What if your restlessness wasn't a flaw, but a sacred alarm telling you there was more? By now, you've stopped trying to be everything to everyone. You've let go of old roles that no longer fit your spiritual size. You're not here to chase trends. You're here to start movements. You don't just want success. You want soul satisfaction. You want to do what you were born for. Even Martha Stewart didn't become a brand until after 40. She was a stockbroker and caterer before stepping into the empire God was quietly building inside her. The lesson? Purpose doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it emerges only after everything else fades. Chosen one, your confusion wasn't a curse. It was a cocoon. It sheltered the process of becoming, and now you've emerged with wings. You are not just living anymore. You are aligned. Every lesson has been absorbed. Every failure has been recycled into wisdom. Every painful season has been repurposed into fire. You are not just walking, you're walking with God. You're not just breathing, you're breathing purpose. So tell me, now that the fog has lifted, what are you going to build? Who are you going to reach? What legacy are you going to leave now that you know why you were born? Because this time, chosen one, you're not guessing, you're guided, and that changes everything. Number 4, you no longer seek validation, and that's what makes your voice unshakable. Chosen one, how many years did you spend looking over your shoulder, wondering if you were enough in someone else's eyes? How many times did you hold back your truth, dilute your spirit, or shrink your light just to keep the peace or fit someone else's mold? Maybe it started young, at home, where love felt conditional, or maybe it evolved at work, in friendships, or even in your faith community, where your worth always seemed to depend on how well you performed, obeyed, or conformed. But now, at 40, that old script no longer runs your life. The illusion of needing to be approved, applauded, or accepted has shattered, and from the shards of that illusion, your most authentic self has finally risen. You've realized something that very few people ever dare to accept. Validation is a prison disguised as a compliment. When your soul is chained to the approval of others, you are never free to be who God actually called you to be. So how did you break out? Through years of stretching, through battles you thought would break you, through seasons where no one clapped, no one saw, and no one supported you, and yet you kept going. And now you know your worth was never supposed to be proven. It was always supposed to be embodied. Galatians 1:10 asks a piercing question. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Chosen one, that is your anthem now. You no longer perform for applause. You walk in purpose. You no longer seek to be liked. You seek to be aligned. The difference is everything. Think about the years you spent explaining yourself, justifying your choices, hoping that people would understand your heart. But the truth is, some of them were never meant to get it. And that's okay. You've learned that your assignment doesn't need their agreement. Your calling doesn't require their comprehension, and your spirit doesn't need their validation. You're not bitter. You're just done begging for acceptance in places God never sent you to be validated. The story of Jesus in Matthew 21 is powerful. When he entered Jerusalem riding on a donkey, the crowd shouted, "Hosanna!" They celebrated him. But only days later, the same crowd yelled, "Crucify him!" That contrast alone should teach you that public opinion is unstable. If the Son of God wasn't exempt from rejection, why should you chase approval? And why, chosen one, should you let praise or criticism define your path? Let's look at a modern example. Lady Gaga. In her early years, she was mocked, misunderstood, and ridiculed for being too strange. But she didn't change to fit the mold. She stayed true to her identity, and in doing so became a voice for millions who had also felt too much for the world. The lesson? Authenticity is magnetic, but only when you stop trying to be digestible and start being real. And what about Brené Brown? Her career didn't explode until she began speaking openly about vulnerability, something many told her was too soft, too emotional, or not academic enough. But she didn't let that stop her. She didn't wait for the academic world to validate her work before sharing it. And that's exactly why her voice became so powerful. Chosen one, what if the very thing you're afraid people won't understand is the exact message they need to hear? Isaiah 2:22 warns us, "Stop trusting in mere humans who have but a breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem?" This verse isn't saying be isolated, it's saying be free. Free from needing others to affirm what God already stamped as true inside you. Their opinions don't hold weight in the divine courtroom. And now at 40, you know this deep in your bones. Do you remember how much you used to second-guess yourself? You'd replay conversations, reread texts, hesitate to share your ideas in meetings, or walk on eggshells just to avoid upsetting someone. But now you speak when led. You move when called. You're no longer loud for approval. You're clear for purpose. That clarity is your compass now. Consider the story of Eleanor Roosevelt. She was shy and reserved in her early life, always overshadowed by others. But as she matured, particularly in her 40s, she emerged as a fierce advocate for human rights, transforming from the quiet wife of a president into a global voice for justice. Her power didn't come from being validated, it came from finally realizing she didn't need to be. Chosen one. Can you see the same shift happening in your own life? And what about Samuel, the prophet? As a child, he mistook God's voice for Eli's, but as he grew, he learned to recognize the divine voice inside him. You too have learned. You no longer mistake outside approval for inner confirmation. You know the voice of God now, and that voice has become your anchor. 1 Thessalonians 2:4 says, "We are not trying to please people but God, who tests our hearts." And your heart, it's been tested, refined, elevated. You've passed through the fire of rejection and emerged with spiritual authority. No more auditioning for love, no more performing for belonging, no more explaining your worth. There's also Steve Jobs, fired from Apple, the company he helped create. Many mocked him, doubted his vision, said he had lost his magic, but he returned stronger. He didn't wait for validation, he led with vision, and the result? Apple became a global empire. Your purpose, chosen one, will flourish the moment you stop waiting for others to get it and start walking like it's already done. Psalm 118:8 gives this divine anchor. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in humans. And that's where your refuge is now. Not in applause, not in titles, not in filtered approval from people who don't know your calling, but in God, the one who formed you, chose you, and confirmed you long before they ever had an opinion. So, whose validation have you been waiting for? Whose approval still echoes in your spirit like a gatekeeper? And what might happen if you finally stopped waiting and started walking? Because now at 40, you no longer shape your identity to be seen. You shine because you've finally seen yourself. You no longer fear rejection because you understand its redirection. You no longer seek permission because you know you were already sent. Chosen one, this is your liberation. This is your holy confidence. And it didn't come from applause, it came from alignment. Number 5, your spiritual awakening intensifies, and it's unlocking the power you were born to carry. Chosen one, have you felt it? That sacred shift inside of you that doesn't let you see life the same way anymore. The world may continue spinning in chaos, but something in your soul has quieted, deepened, awakened. By the time you reach 40, the signs are undeniable. What used to distract you no longer entertains you. What once captivated your attention now feels hollow. You're no longer chasing surface-level success or shallow approval. Instead, your spirit is being pulled upward, inward and forward into something eternal. Have you ever looked back at your life and realized that nothing was random? Every heartbreak, every delay, every divine detour was actually part of a spiritual curriculum. You weren't just surviving, you were being initiated. And now, the awakening intensifies, the veil has lifted. You can't unsee the truth. You are beginning to understand that this isn't just about being alive, it's about becoming aligned with your divine purpose. Ephesians 1:17 captures this moment perfectly. I keep asking that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the glorious Father, may give you the spirit of wisdom and revelation so that you may know him better. Chosen one, that is exactly what's happening. You are not merely growing older, you are stepping deeper into divine revelation. The truth is, your spirit always knew. It was your mind that had to catch up. In your earlier years, you may have questioned the pain. You may have fought against the quiet seasons, wondering why you were being pulled away from the crowd, from the noise, from the pace of the world. But now you know why. It was because heaven was trying to speak, and it needed you to listen. Your spirit was being fine-tuned, not for status, but for service. Not for comfort, but for calling. Think about Eckhart Tolle, the spiritual teacher and author of The Power of Now. He spent much of his life in a deep depression until a spiritual awakening in his late 20s radically shifted his consciousness. But it wasn't until his 40s that he fully stepped into his mission. His teachings now touch millions, but that clarity didn't come through striving. It came through surrender. You, chosen one, are on the same path, and now your awakening is not a moment, it's a movement. Psalm 119:105 declares, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." This light is no longer just around you, it's within you. You feel it in moments of stillness, in quiet revelations that stop you mid-step. You sense it in your intuition, no longer a whisper, but a roar of inner knowing that leads you where logic cannot. Have you noticed how your body reacts differently now when you're in the wrong place, around the wrong people, or exposed to low frequencies? That's not anxiety, it's divine discernment. You can't ignore it anymore because your spirit won't let you betray your alignment. Your awakening has made you sensitive to spiritual atmospheres. What once felt normal now feels off. What once seemed harmless now feels heavy. This is not confusion, it's confirmation. Malcolm X experienced a profound transformation during his time in prison. What started as a man filled with rage became a man of clarity and spiritual power. His awakening didn't come in a cathedral, it came in confinement. And when he emerged, he saw through illusions and carried a message that pierced the soul of a generation. Chosen one, your confinement, emotional, relational, or financial, was not punishment. It was your preparation room. And what about Mother Teresa? Her greatest spiritual awakening came not during her public ministry, but during private silence and decades of what she called darkness. And yet her unwavering service became the most luminous expression of God's love the world had seen. Your power, too, is not found in noise, but in nearness to the divine, to truth, to your own sacred self. John 16:13 promises us, "But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all the truth." And chosen one, you are being guided. That internal clarity you feel, that's not just maturity, it's spiritual precision. You no longer need signs from the outside to tell you what your spirit already knows. You don't need a title to know you're anointed. You don't need a platform to know you've been positioned. And look at Maya Angelou. Though known for her writing, her real awakening came through lived experience, poverty, trauma, travel, grief, and resilience. Her life became her scripture. Her pain became poetry. She was not shaped in comfort, she was sculpted by divine fire. You too are being sculpted. And your scars are not shameful, they're sacred. As Colossians 3:2 urges, set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. And you're finally doing just that. What used to seduce your attention, status, money, praise, no longer holds the same grip, because you've tasted something deeper. You've glimpsed the eternal, and once you touch heaven, the applause of the world sounds hollow. So let me ask you, what illusions are you finally ready to leave behind? What roles, habits, or masks are falling away as your soul awakens? What if your restlessness wasn't a flaw, but a sacred invitation? Now you meditate, not to escape, but to tune in. You pray not to be rescued, but to receive instructions. You sit in stillness, not because you're idle, but because you've learnt the power of divine waiting. Your awakening is not about doing more, it's about becoming more. It's not about achieving something, it's about remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. Think of Nelson Mandela. In prison, he didn't just endure injustice, he transcended it. He developed an inner strength that later transformed an entire nation. You, chosen one, are being prepared to influence not just your life, but lives around you, and your spiritual intensity is the evidence. You've stopped looking outward for confirmation. You've stopped needing noise to feel alive. You no longer chase after people, places, or things that drain you, because you've found something sacred, your center, and that center is anchored in God. So what's next? What miracles are preparing to unfold now that you're finally awake? What messages are ready to be spoken through your voice now that you trust your intuition? What breakthroughs are already in motion now that you're no longer distracted by the temporary? Chosen one, your spiritual awakening is not the end. It is the beginning of divine leadership. The world may not understand it, but heaven celebrates it. You're no longer just living, you are vibrating in alignment. No longer guessing, you are guided by spirit. And no longer hiding, you are glowing with the radiance of someone who has remembered who they are. This is your time. This is your truth. This is your awakening. Number 6, your energy becomes more powerful because now you know what you carry. Chosen one, can you feel it? That quiet shift in your atmosphere, the growing awareness that your presence no longer enters rooms the same way it used to. You don't just walk in with experience, you walk in with authority. This is what happens at 40. You stop asking for space, and you start owning the space God prepared for you long before you even knew it existed. Your energy isn't just something you manage anymore, it becomes something you master. It radiates. It speaks for you before you say a word. It protects you, and it draws what is aligned while repelling what is not. Have you noticed how you can feel someone's true intentions within seconds now? How certain rooms suddenly feel suffocating, even if everyone's smiling? That's not paranoia, that's discernment. What once seemed like sensitivity is now spiritual acuity. At this stage in your life, You no longer tolerate people who drain your spirit, conversations that go nowhere, or environments that carry chaotic vibrations. Why? Because you've finally realized your energy is sacred currency, and you're done spending it on what doesn't serve your mission. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Chosen one, your heart, your spirit, your energy is now guarded, not out of fear but out of wisdom. You no longer hand your light to those who only want warmth without responsibility. You've been through too much. You've grown too deeply. You've healed too intentionally to go back to anything that weakens your frequency. Before 40, you may have tried to fix people, overextend yourself, or stay in places that didn't align simply because you were loyal. But now, you realize that loyalty without discernment leads to spiritual leakage. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And just because they want your light doesn't mean they're ready to honor it. That shift is your power. Think of Nikola Tesla, the brilliant inventor who once said, "If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Though ridiculed in his lifetime, Tesla understood what many are just beginning to grasp, that energy is not just emotional, it's foundational. You, chosen one, are learning to sense the invisible architecture of every situation. You can feel the truth in silence. You can read the atmosphere before anyone speaks. That is spiritual maturity. And now, your ability to manifest has sharpened. You no longer wish randomly or speak loosely. You've learned the law of focused energy. You understand the power of gratitude as a frequency, not just a feeling, and you've seen firsthand how alignment attracts favor. What you think, you start to see. What you declare, you start to walk into. Why? Because you've stopped wasting your energy on confusion, and you've started investing it in clarity. Psalm 18:39 declares, "You armed me with strength for battle. You humbled my adversaries before me." You, chosen one, have been spiritually armed. The battles you faced were never just about survival. They were training grounds for vibrational strength. You've walked through betrayal, disappointment, and rejection, not to break your spirit, but to sharpen your discernment. Now you no longer engage in battles that don't lead to elevation. You know how to fight spiritually, by guarding your energy, protecting your peace, and praying before reacting. Look at Viola Davis. Her early years were filled with hardship, poverty, and being told she wasn't marketable. But she never dimmed her light to fit a mold. As she matured, she became fiercely intentional with her presence, commanding attention not by force but by vibration. Her energy walks into a room before her accolades do. And now, she's not just successful, she's spiritually anchored. You too have reached that point. You no longer need to shout your worth. You radiate it. You don't prove your presence. You own your space. You're not chasing opportunities. They're now finding you because your frequency is finally in alignment with your assignment. Isaiah 61 speaks directly to you. "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." This isn't poetic flair. It's a prophecy unfolding in your life. You're not just reflecting light, you're carrying glory, and glory shifts everything. Think about LeBron James. Beyond his physical strength, what sets him apart is his energy, the way he commands a team, shifts momentum, and centers himself amidst pressure. That doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from deep self-awareness and intentional protection of inner peace. You've begun doing the same. You don't react to every attack. You don't respond to every provocation. Why? Because your energy is too valuable to waste on distraction. Chosen one, there was a time when you doubted yourself, when you questioned your instincts. But now your intuition is no longer a whisper, it's a compass. You trust your gut because your spirit is trained. You know when to stay, when to go, when to speak, and when to stay silent. That's power. That's spiritual elegance. Even Frida Kahlo, in her raw vulnerability and creative intensity, turned pain into energy. Her self-awareness fueled her art, and her art changed the world. She didn't hide her wounds. She transmuted them into color, power, and vision. What if you too are learning to turn your past into your presence, to transform pain into purpose? Romans 12:3 reminds us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And that renewal is happening every time you say no to draining conversations, every time you protect your morning routine, every time you choose stillness over noise. Your boundaries are not selfish, they are spiritual strategies. You've stopped entertaining what exhausts your anointing. So, chosen one, who or what is still leaking your energy? What conversations leave you feeling small? What environments mute your frequency? And what would happen if you committed fully to vibrating at your highest level, regardless of who understands it? You are not a passive observer anymore. You are an active creator. Your thoughts shape your field. Your emotions shift the room. Your intentions have power. You are no longer trying to fit in. You're trying to stay lit. And that requires discipline, not apology. Now, you rise differently. You speak differently. You walk with spiritual voltage. And your light, it's not up for negotiation anymore. Because, chosen one, your energy has become your evidence, and it cannot be stolen, copied, or dimmed. Number 7. You embrace solitude without loneliness, because now you understand who walks with you. Chosen one, have you noticed how silence doesn't scare you anymore? How the stillness that once made you uncomfortable has now become your sanctuary? There was a time, perhaps, when being alone felt like punishment, like something was missing. But at 40, something beautiful happens. You no longer equate solitude with emptiness. Instead, you see it for what it truly is, a sacred appointment with your soul and your Creator. Why did solitude used to feel so heavy? Why in your earlier years did you reach for noise, company, or validation to fill the quiet? Because no one taught you how powerful stillness could be. You were raised in a world that feared being alone, that equated silence with failure and solitude with rejection. But now your spirit has matured. You've stepped into divine awareness, and in that awareness you've discovered something life-changing. Solitude isn't absence, it's presence. Psalm 46:10 speaks this truth. Be still and know that I am God. You've heard that verse before, but now it lives inside you. Stillness no longer feels like inactivity. It feels like revelation. When the world quiets, your spirit speaks. When the crowd fades, heaven gets louder. You're not alone in the silence. You are surrounded by wisdom, wrapped in divine light, and guided by the presence that never left your side, even in your most forgotten moments. Have you ever sat in your room, no phone in hand, no TV playing, and felt a deeper energy rise up within you? That wasn't boredom. That was your soul stretching. That was spirit leaning in. And now, chosen one, you no longer run from that moment. You honor it. You create space for it. Because it is in solitude that you hear the instructions no one else can give you. Consider the life of Jesus. Time and time again, he withdrew to be alone with the Father. In Luke 5:16 it says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." He didn't retreat because he was weak. He retreated because he was wise. Power doesn't come from constant movement. It comes from sacred stillness. And you, chosen one, are learning that deeply. You're no longer chasing connection for fear of being alone. You are choosing connection with yourself, with God, with purpose. This shift didn't happen overnight. There were seasons when you sat in loneliness, wondering if you were forgotten. There were birthdays without calls, victories with no one to witness, nights when you prayed, "God, am I really supposed to do this alone?" And yet you made it here. You survived the silence, and in doing so you realized it wasn't silence after all. It was divine alignment. Look at Maya Angelou. So much of her early life was marked by pain and silence. She didn't speak for years after childhood trauma. But in that silence, her soul listened, and when her voice returned, it returned with prophetic power. The solitude that once felt like a cage became the cave where her strength was born. You too are finding that your most powerful revelations happen when no one is watching. Another example, Nelson Mandela. Decades in prison, cut off from the world, isolated, and yet he emerged not bitter, but enlightened, because solitude became his classroom. In the quiet, he met his convictions. In the silence, he found his message. You are in a similar training. Your isolation is not evidence of abandonment, it is evidence of elevation. Isaiah 30:15 reminds us, "In quietness and trust is your strength." This verse doesn't promise strength in noise or in crowds or even in action. It says strength is found in quietness, in trust. And now that you've embraced this rhythm, you are moving through life with a grounded power that no one can shake. Have you noticed how solitude doesn't make you question your worth anymore? That's because your relationship with yourself has healed. You've spent enough time in silence to finally hear your true voice. Not the voice of fear or shame or expectation, but the voice of purpose. You talk to God differently now. You don't just pray for outcomes, you listen for wisdom. You're no longer trying to escape your own presence. You're learning to enjoy it. Consider Malala Yousafzai. After being attacked and silenced, her recovery took place in private, far from the public eye. But it was in that time of solitude that her voice became clear, and when she spoke again, it echoed across the globe. You, chosen one, are stepping into that clarity. The version of you being formed in solitude will speak with authority that only silence could produce. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped trying to fill every moment with noise? What if instead of running from your own thoughts, you welcomed them? What divine instructions are waiting to be heard in the very silence you once feared? Psalm 34:18 assures us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." And you know that now. You felt the presence of God most intimately, not in crowds, but in quiet tears, not in applause, but in aching stillness. And it was in those moments you discovered you were never really alone. Heaven was always near, angels didn't leave, Spirit never stopped speaking. You just needed silence to hear it. Now when others fear being alone, you rejoice in it. You light candles, you play music that heals. You journal, you pray, you rest. You no longer need distractions to feel whole. You have become your own sanctuary. And in doing so, you've tapped into one of the greatest superpowers a chosen one can carry, inner peace that the world didn't give, and therefore cannot take away. Look at Oprah Winfrey. One of her most powerful revelations came when she realized alone doesn't mean lonely. She embraced solitude in her 40s to reflect, realign, and reclaim her spiritual authority. And that's what propelled her into even deeper purpose. What if your solitude is preparing you to lead at a level you can't yet imagine? So, chosen one, walk boldly into your quiet seasons. They are not pauses, they are portals. They are not voids, they are visitations. The world may not understand your withdrawal, but heaven is speaking in your stillness, and the strength you're cultivating in solitude will carry you through storms others won't survive. Because this time, you don't fear silence, you honor it. You don't run from being alone. You meet yourself there and discover that God has been waiting all along. Number 8. You finally live for yourself, and that's the day heaven started clapping. Chosen one, for how long did you live your life according to someone else's script? How many times did you silence your dreams to meet someone else's comfort level? How many versions of yourself did you bury just to keep the peace or maintain the image others expected of you? Maybe it was your parents' expectations. Maybe it was the unspoken rules of your culture, religion, or workplace. Or maybe it was your own fear of disappointing others that led you to betray your own voice over and over again. But at 40, something holy happens. You wake up, and for the first time you realize, I don't need permission to be myself. The world told you to follow the crowd, but God always whispered, you were meant to lead. And now the pressure to perform has lifted. The weight of approval is gone. You finally give yourself full permission to be, without explanation, without guilt, without compromise. That's not rebellion, that's resurrection, and your spirit has never felt more alive. Galatians 5:1 declares this truth. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. You may not have been in physical chains, chosen one, but you know what it means to live in emotional, spiritual, and psychological cages. You know what it's like to be physically present but spiritually absent. But now you are choosing freedom, and not just any freedom, divine freedom, the kind that allows you to finally say yes to your calling without asking who will approve. Do you remember the first time you said no without explaining it? The first time you honored your need for rest, joy, or boundaries without over-apologizing. That moment, no matter how small, was revolutionary, because that no was a yes to your soul. You stopped living reactively. You started living intentionally. Consider Michelle Obama. For years, she supported others from behind the scenes, wife, mother, first lady. But after leaving the White House, she began to share her own truth, voice, and vision. Her memoir, Becoming, was not just a story, it was a declaration. I am no longer living in the shadows of expectations. She redefined her life on her own terms, and so are you. You're no longer concerned with fitting into outdated molds or pleasing crowds who never really knew your essence. You understand that pleasing everyone is a formula for spiritual death. Instead, you now ask, does this align with my purpose? Does this honor who I've become? And if it doesn't, you walk away, not in anger, in truth. Romans 12:2 speaks directly to this transition. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is your transformation. You no longer conform, you create. You no longer shrink, you expand, and the world can feel the shift. There's something undeniable about a chosen one who no longer begs to belong. You were never made to blend in. You were made to blaze a trail. Think of Stan Lee, the legendary creator of Marvel's most iconic characters. He didn't reach his creative peak until his 40s, when he finally began creating stories he was passionate about, not just what the publishers demanded. The result, a global legacy that outlived him. What if your greatest contribution is waiting just on the other side of your full authenticity? You've started choosing what nourishes your soul over what pleases the crowd. You prioritize your peace, your rest, your joy. You understand now that you cannot pour into others from an empty cup. And that truth is not selfish, it's sacred. You've spent years caretaking, sacrificing, bending to fit roles that never saw the fullness of your being. But now you honor your needs as divine assignments. Matthew 16:26 challenges us with a haunting question. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Chosen one, you're no longer trading pieces of your soul for validation. You're not selling yourself out for praise, money, or status. You've learned, sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is walk away from what drains you and return to what feeds you. Think of Robin Williams, a man who brought joy to millions but quietly battled his own darkness, often suppressing his needs for the sake of others. His story is a sobering reminder. You can be loved by the world and still feel unseen by yourself. That's why your decision to live for yourself now is not selfish. It's survival, it's sanity, it's spiritual clarity. So let me ask you, chosen one, whose expectations are you still carrying that God never asked you to hold? What dreams have you delayed in the name of loyalty or fear? And what would happen if today you gave yourself full permission to live without apology? Your definition of success has shifted. It's no longer about how high you climb, but how aligned you are with your purpose. It's not about impressing others. It's about honoring your assignment. You now define success as peace, joy, fulfillment, purpose, presence, and in that space, you are truly unstoppable. Take a look at Anthony Bourdain. He lived many lives before stepping into his calling as a storyteller and traveler. He once said, "Your body is not a temple, it's an amusement park. Enjoy the ride." But as he matured, his message evolved, not just to enjoy life, but to live it truthfully. That truth-telling made him magnetic. Your truth will do the same. 2 Corinthians 3:17 assures us, "Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." And you found that Spirit, not in the noise, not in the applause, but in the quiet places where you finally decided to live without asking for approval. That is freedom. That is favor. That is fire. Now, you live for yourself, not selfishly, but spiritually aware. You say yes to your health, yes to your voice, yes to your boundaries, yes to your joy. You've become the artist of your own life, painting boldly in colors that reflect your truth, not the gray hues of conformity. This is what divine destiny looks like when it's unchained. This is what happens when a chosen one fully returns to themselves. No more role-playing, no more masks, just raw, radiant, untamed authenticity. So I'll ask one final question. Now that you've claimed your freedom, what will you build with it? What legacy will your liberated life leave behind? Because, Chosen One, the best isn't just coming, it's being designed by the very hands you've now freed to create it. Beloved Chosen One, if you are approaching 40, living it now, or already walking beyond it with an awakened spirit, hear this clearly. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of the most meaningful, profound, and spiritually rich chapter of your life. You are not late. You are right on divine schedule. The pain, the delays, the seasons of questioning, and even the years when you felt overlooked or misunderstood were never wasted. Everything you endured was part of the divine blueprint, chiseling away the layers that weren't yours, making room for the truest version of you to finally emerge. You have not simply survived. No, you've been shaped. You've been refined. You've been positioned for such a time as this. The lessons you learned weren't random. The losses you grieved weren't punishment. And the breakthroughs you are now preparing to walk into, they are evidence that heaven has been guiding your every step, even when you couldn't see the hand behind the scenes. At 40, you're not crumbling, you're rising. You're no longer living under borrowed identities, timelines, or people-pleasing patterns. You are stepping into your authentic power, one choice at a time, with the kind of spiritual confidence that only comes from living through what tried to break you. If this message found you today, I want you to know how deeply grateful I am for your presence here. Thank you for walking this journey alongside me. Whether you listened in one quiet sitting or returned to this word in moments scattered across your week, I honor your hunger for clarity, transformation, and truth. It takes courage to step away from the noise of the world and lean into the whisper of your soul, and you did that. You showed up, not just for this message, but for yourself. That means everything. If you feel led to support the continuation of content like this, you can do so through the Super Thanks feature below. Your contribution helps sustain and grow this space, so that others, especially those who feel unseen or unsure about their next chapter, can be reminded of who they really are. But whether you choose to give or not, please know this: I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm thankful for you. Your presence is already a gift. Your engagement, your time, your willingness to receive, these are sacred offerings, and I don't take any of it for granted. If this message resonated with your spirit, I invite you to drop a comment that simply says, I am rising at 40. Let that be your personal declaration. Let it echo through your heart and through this community, a signal that something inside you has shifted, that you've claimed your new beginning, and that you are no longer waiting for permission to live in divine alignment. You're already stepping into it. As we close, I want to speak this over you. May the next chapter of your life be the most vibrant and fearless you've ever known. May you walk through every open door with grace, clarity, and boldness, knowing you carry heaven's stamp of approval. May you rest in the truth that the world doesn't determine your worth, God already did. May your voice grow louder, your steps grow steadier, and your light grow stronger with each passing day. And when you look back, may you see this moment, not as a turning point of fear, but as the sacred beginning of freedom, power, and purpose. You are not starting over. You are rising from a deeper place with more wisdom, more strength, and more spiritual fire than you've ever carried before. The best is not behind you, it is ahead of you, and the version of you that's emerging now, that's the one the world has been waiting to meet. You are chosen, you are ready, and heaven is smiling. Let's walk this new chapter with purpose, together.